Okay, so Paul had to go, but one thing that we were talking about was language, and so Jonathan, could you say you were saying something to me about that just now? Was there something that Wittgenstein or something? Well, tell me more about that.
Yeah, Wittgenstein's way too smart for me to actually entirely understand. But as far as I can tell, it's that the world wouldn't exist without the symbols to define it for us.
Hmm.
You know, it's not just out there. It doesn't do us any good. But the way that we understand it is through our definitions and our words and our um make it accessible to us. And when we have it in common, then you and I share a world. Um, and if we don't have it, uh, the symbols to describe the world uh, in common, then it's inaccessible to us.
Okay.
So so basically, the symbols are the world. Um,
S- So when you're talking about that, is there a certain segment of the world then that can we build our own world if we just build the right symbols?
yeah, anyone can.
Hmm.
Like, that's how inside jokes work. It's like nobody knows what we're talking about, but because we've been friends for years and we have
Hmm.
had experiences together, all we have to do is like one little, you know, phrase that makes no sense to anybody else in the room, and we're cracking up because it makes sense to us. We have a shared world, um, and everybody else thinks we're dorks. But when you've been having different experiences, vastly different experiences, and you're talking, it seems like you're talking about two different things, because we call things by different names, and so
Yeah.
it's just in first it's just like, what are you talking about? And then instead of that, if we could have a and say, what do you mean when you say,
Yeah.
um and say more. I remember, for instance, when I had a friend, he was homeless, and he was from like the Peloponnese. No, no, he was from the Polynesian Islands,
Okay.
um, Samoa, and
Hmm.
so his English was pretty good, but still filling in the cracks. And he'd say, what is the word I'm looking for? It,
Hmm.
like the faith of Abraham was this ancient, simple, basic, but deep understanding of an eternal being. How would you describe his faith? And we'd talk for 3 hours to come up with something like primal, and he'd be like, that's a good word, I think, but um, just a really, really long conversation about why you're using that word, and what your experience has been, um, and say another 1,000 words about that word, so I get a fuller picture of what you're talking about, and then finally we can come to some kind of common understanding and say, yeah, I've had something like that happen to me, or at least it gave me the same feeling, you know.
Okay, so yeah, finding a common language to describe experiences.
And I
And
think
go ahead.
part of the reason there's a culture war right now is that there is different languages, and everyone
Mm.
expects the other side to accept my terms and definitions right now before we start having a conversation. No, you're not going to accept my terms and definitions as given, as I have demanded that you do right off the get go. Then like the war is on.
Yeah. I guess my fear would be though, as we create our own even if it's not creating, maybe it's just like uncovering and developing together a common symbol. How does that not become an exclusive solipsistic group in itself. Maybe it's not solipsistic in the sense of like there's many people involved in it, but how does it not become like a big inside joke, or like how does it not develop shibboleths that
Right.
exclude others, and
Well, everything's like that until it's accepted.
hmm,
Like like we're talking about change. Like 3% of the population wants change. 97% like things the way they are.
mm-hmm,
But there's this really strong, stubborn, dedicated, persistent element of saying like, let's make it work. Let's make something new work. Let's develop something that hasn't been done before. And everybody's like, it'll never work. And then like 10 years later, we can't imagine life without it. And it's part of the way we've always done things again. That if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. That's fine. But the reason we have the systems we have now is because people have been working for a really long time to make things better. Like
mm-hmm.
um, we didn't used to have fire hydrants. Somebody had to come up with the idea for fire hydrants, and
Hmm.
I'm sure somebody thought it was stupid at some point, and now it's like you know I mean, I've watched even like the culture around safety belts in my lifetime. I was there before. I was there before,
Yeah.
and now it's like you're a fool if you don't buckle up. And
Yeah.
it worked. It took a huge amount of energy and campaigning and messaging and everything for everybody to get it through their thick skulls. Like, if you don't want to die, it's really easy. Just go shh. And a lot of people thought that was a stupid, bad idea. Don't tell me what to do. It takes a lot of work for it to catch on. But I promise you that the first the innovators and the pioneers, was a group of a dozen people or something at some point. So,
Well, I think that's really interesting because lately I've been thinking about social constructs, and I remember we had this big debate in our church once, and it was about gender and how gender is a social construct. Well, so the pastor was trying to show how gender was a social construct. Of course, the way he was putting it was frustrating both those on the left and on the right. And I guess for me it was sort of boring in the sense that yes, everything's a social construct. I get that,
so
but that's not the problem. Everything, yes, everything. And then I talk to those that when I say, everything is a social construct, light is a social construct.
right.
Us calling it light. Do you know how light works? Do you know what electricity is? What is it made out of?
You and
Um,
I can agree that you have a blue background, but it could be green to me and purple to you, and we both call it blue, but we agree. You know,
so I think that's the key is yeah, that is the problem. And to your point about the social or cultural wars being over a lack of common language, I think that's huge.
I mean, the gender
And
conversation
go
is a
ahead, what?
perfect. The gender conversation is a perfect example.
Mhm.
Like, I demand that you see things my way and
Mhm.
describe it the way that I describe it. And the
Mm.
other people are like, no, like I describe it this way, and you're retarded if you don't. And there's no like, what do you mean?
Yeah.
Why? Why is this important to you? Like, can you give me like I'm going to listen to everything you have to say for the next hour and a half about why this is important to you, and why like come up with a try and convince me that it's better for me to talk the way you talk about it than the way that I have been talking about it for my whole life. And if you're not willing to do some really it's gritty work, it's a long drawn out ugly process, and people's feelings are going to get hurt probably, but
Yeah.
at the end of it we might have a common understanding. Oh, okay, well, now I see things different than I used to, I'll start talking different to because I understand where you're coming from, or maybe I'll get you to say things a little different too, and between the two of us we can start having a conversation because we have common language. But at this point it's just a power struggle between people talking completely different languages.
And the problem may be that, people people feel powerless.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what I was sort of getting at by the Borg, or talking about the, the, what do you call it? The Christmas cathedral or whatever, is not to say that it's all about the fight against that, but I think it informs, at least from what I can tell, it informs the initiative, because it is, because I think people do feel powerless in that world, in this world in general, because of that. And I feel like, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jubilee Underground sort of says, no, you don't. I mean, yes, you feel powerless. I totally get that. And I do too. And you don't have to get power by saying you're stupid, to the other side. Is that sort of it, that Jubilee Underground is part of, a big part of the emphasis is on saying, let's sit down with each other and figure each other out. What are you interested in, and how can I? Here's what I'm interested in. What are you interested in? Instead of, this is my position, what's your position?
And also, like, if we're if I've done something successfully for me, you can ask, well, can I do that too and apply it to my situation and my life will be better? Or did that only work for him? And I can just say, take it or leave it. Like, I had a struggle, I had a problem, I didn't feel heard. I was really felt disenfranchised and disempowered, and um, I think disenfranchised is the best word.
Yeah.
And like, and so this is the steps that it took me to get to a place where I was empowered and my life was moving forward, and I got what I needed for me and my family and my tribe. Um, but it took me I mean, I had to bust my head and bust my butt and cry myself to sleep, and it was really frustrating. But I'm in a better place because I tried this and it worked. And then somebody else could say, like, I want to get there, like I want to get out of this uh constant power struggle where I'm on the losing side. Let's try that and see if it works. Or um like, we don't really hold as many keys as we wish we did. Like, we don't um it just feels like, the house always wins. And um we're not ever gonna be the house. But if it's like, well, they're not going to ever think about this because they're not us. Like, sure, they might be able to provide certain things for us that we can't provide for ourselves, and that's fine, no judgment. But they're not providing something very crucial that I consider essential to my life. Can we do it together? Can you and I live in a world that we want to live in because we cooperated and made it happen?
Wow.
Or are we just like waiting for it to be delivered in an already smooth package?
So I think I'm gonna be coming back to this Shanti Shen. I had to go look at the thing I wrote. Shanti Shen. It comes back to a persistence, like Paul said, and like you said, it's not about necessarily you have to sign this to get in here, but it's a persistence of. I think one of the deal breakers is the Shanti Shana, is that we sit down and work it out. We work it out. I want to know your side. Or if
We
you're
are
talking
the
to what?
we are the adults in the room we've been waiting for.
I like that. Yeah, yeah. We're I so humility is a big aspect of this,
And
right?
responsibility. Yeah.
So, oh, that's key. Humility with responsibility.
Yeah.
So, I might be humble, but if I'm responsible um for my family, I may be humble, but I'm not going to sacrifice them to you, in other words.
Um well, and then like my life isn't going to improve until I participate. Like I'm
Oh, right. Right.
like I have to be vested. I have to be vested in the struggle.
Skin in the game.
Yeah. Instead of just saying like, why does this giant system suck so much that it doesn't do what I want it to do? It's like, man, they've been working on it for hundreds of years, and it used to be worse, like a lot worse. And so that doesn't mean that I don't consider it my messiah.
Uh-huh.
Um, but if you said like this video game sucks, and somebody said why, and it's like, well, when I get to this one place, I wish that there was this feature, and the programmer could say that's a great idea and improve the video game. But it's not like that guy may have put 1,000 hours of programming into making the entire game for you to enjoy. Just because it didn't have a feature you wanted, there's no
Yeah.
reason to throw the whole thing out. Like work on it together, um, and maybe become one of the programmers.
Hmm.
That's what I meant by responsibility. But
Okay. I like
another
it.
thing, last time or the time before when we were talking, and you said, "Oh, it was when we were talking about nonviolent crisis intervention,"
Hmm.
and you said like some of these people don't have parents that are invested in their lives. Like, who's the authority in the situation? And I'm like, I said that word
Mhm.
means different things to different people, and it's so
Mhm.
laden with preconceived notions. It's not a helpful word. Um,
Hmm.
like I'm not, people say when people use certain words, I kind of want to say like let's back up and ask a different question using different
Hmm.
words because that word doesn't mean anything helpful to me. So
Hmm.
by the time we have a really, really long conversation, we have a better understanding of what it means when I use that word.
Hmm.
We can't really assume that we understand each other without a lot of work.
Okay. And I think that's the key. A lot of work. And
Yeah,
that's where you come where what you said about responsibility and skin in the game is like you got to be I have to be willing to work and not give up and have enough humility to sit and listen to the other side and keep working till we at least hear each other.
right. And now some people that we consider great innovators or reformers or visionaries, they were alone or part of a small group that had a like sort of a prophetic message for
Hmm.
everyone else to hear, and no one would hear them, so they put their bodies on the line. Like getting arrested or like pepper sprayed or fire hoses is not fun, but when you don't have when you don't have a language to express yourself in a way you can be heard, sometimes it takes putting your body out there and saying like I am that invested in being heard. And they were, and changes have come
Mm-hmm.
because of people like Rosa Parks and Dr. King. And and that is a way. And Gandhi, that's a way of expressing yourself when words aren't working,
Well,
and that's
that's
real
helpful.
world.
Yeah, that's helpful for me to hear, because I'm not I'm my default position is not to it is against that sort of thing, but to hear in the different contexts when you talk about it in terms of real skin in the game, right? Real responsibility, and not just because sometimes I guess it can seem to be like a tantrum to me, but
Right. No,
that
I
could be
mean,
out
setting
of
tires,
context though, right?
like setting tires on fire in the middle of the street just makes a mess. But no, there have been certain people who have clearly expressed themselves by saying, I am this invested in this struggle. Like I am this serious. Like you can set the dogs on me and you can pepper spray me in the face and bust my skull, but I mean what I mean it. Like, listen to me. And
Mhm.
that's why, like, that was such a powerful image to me. And my story about my first experience of seeing Shanta Shana happen was this guy had step in and lay
Mm,
his hands on blades and say
yeah,
enough. And it takes a lot of guts, but
that's
that's
good.
a symbol. Even if it's not linguistic, that's a powerful symbol.
Yeah. Well, thanks, man. I um I appreciate you sort of helping me sort of painting the picture out there for me a little bit better. And I
We'll
think the
see.
more we talk about it, the bigger the picture gets. And
All
that's the
right.
goal, right? That's the
Yep.
goal.
Yep. That's what it takes.
All right. Well,
I gotta go harvest some watercress.
okay. Well, thank you,
Good
sir.
answer.
Harvest crest was the first thing was the thing you brought to in your paper. I was like, I wonder what a watercress. I wonder what watercress is, because you said you brought it to the seed thing in your article.
Oh yeah, it's real
The
good
seed
stuff.
swap. What
It
is it?
grows in it grows in spring water. It's a sign of a healthy creek. If you have pollutants or high
Mm,
nitrogen, or it's not going to do real well. So when we bought this property in the winter, and it was just a miracle to watch everything bloom in the spring. Spring's always a miracle to me. Like, how on earth is this possible? There's green stuff coming out of sticks.
mm,
Wow. But it's special that we have, as much as anybody can own land, we have a piece of paper that says we have the right to quiet enjoyment and English covenants thereof and stuff. But
nice. Okay, well, you got to go do that, and I'll
yeah,
let you do that.
then we're like, look at all these beautiful plants that are growing on our land
Yeah.
where we live, where we're going to raise our children, and one of them was watercress. And it's really good for your internal organs. It's a little spicy, it's not just like lettuce. So it's
Is
got
it
it's
like
got a little bit
it's a
bitter.
lettuce type substance?
Yeah, I mean the leaves are real small, but about just before spring, just before things warm up, it starts growing in the water, floating on top of the water like lily pads, kind of. And I just go cut some of the leaves off, leave the roots, and they'll grow back. And take it to parties, and some people are like, "Oh, the hippies have showed up now. We have freshly harvested watercress." But then you take a couple bites, and most people are a fan.
Nice. Okay. Well, go harvest it, brother, and
All
we'll
right,
talk again soon.
take care.
You too.
Thank you.
Thank you.